Okay, thanks, Joey. And then Norma, if I can pass it over to you to make the language access announcement.
Sure. Buenas noches, mi nombre es Norma, voy a ser la intérprete para esta reunión. Si necesita escuchar la reunión en español, en unos segundos van a ver la opción para escoger el canal en español. Gracias.
Thank you, Norma. Sorry, just a second. We just had something a little funky happen on the screen, but I think we're okay now. So I'm going to go ahead and get us started with roll call for attendance for today. So just a second while I transition over to my roll call document. And then for folks that are in person, obviously just let me know you're here. And then if you're online, just go ahead and holler out. So to get started, Nancy Aguirre. Present. Thank you. Luna Angulo Castro.
Present.
Okay, thank you. Ianad Burrell.
Here.
Hi. And then Marisol Cantu. Present. Thank you. Sandra Marquez.
Present.
Suzanne Coffey.
Present.
Thank you. Michelle Gomez Garcia. Absent. Lisbeth Ibarra.
Present.
Hakeem Johnson. Marcus absent. Jeffrey Kilbreth. Maybe he's joining a little bit later, but so for now. Dr. Matoso.
Present.
Jessica Range. Here. Thank you. Simran Sandhu.
Present.
Thank you. Dave Severy. Marcus absent. Heidi Swillinger.
I'm here.
Okay. Franklin Ungo. And then BK White.
Present.
Thank you. All right, so that's it for attendance. Just a reminder to everyone that for tonight's meeting, we won't be using raised hands for voting, but we'll instead use roll call for action items. And we only have one tonight, which is the approval of the December 9th meeting minutes. And then just a quick reminder, you guys know in person that the mics are very sensitive and will pick up any sort of side conversation, rustling of paper or anything like that. So just be mindful so that the folks online can have a good experience in the meeting. And with that, I do want to actually get us started with a brief round of new or Air District staff that are here tonight. So I want to introduce Joelle Tony, who is here in person with us. She's recently hired to the Environmental Justice.
Sorry, the laptop wasn't working.
No worries.
Hey, Carissa, we're still getting echo.
Sorry about that.
Okay, I think we're good now.
All good.
Yeah, the email wasn't working for me. Sorry, everyone. I had to switch to my phone.
Okay, no worries, Nancy. So we did want to start with a round of introductions. And so we have Joelle Tony. She is a new staff member on the Environmental Justice Division at the Air District, and she will be supporting the Richmond Path to Clean Air CSE. So I'll hand it over to her to give a quick introduction.
Hi everyone, it's really nice to meet you all today. Some of you have already had opportunity to chat with one-on-one. I'm from Sacramento. I was one of the CSC members of the South Sacramento Florin community, so I sat in these seats. I'm really excited to work with all of you.
Welcome.
Thank you. And then, so we also have a number of Air District staff that are online, and some of them are new to the space as well. So we did want to hand it over to Air District staff online to do brief introductions, your name and the division that you work for here at the Air District, just so that CSC members are aware of Air District staff that are attending these meetings. So I will pass it to Chad since I see his hand is raised.
Thank you. I thought raising our hands would be a good way to kind of tick through us. Chad White, I'm from the Incentives Division. We work on technology turnover and support CERPs with funding. Thanks.
I'll jump in. I'm Allison Kirk. I work in the Planning Division. I will pass to Joseph Lapka.
Hi, I'm Joe Lapka. I'm a staff person in the ambient air quality analysis section, and I'm looking forward to working with you all.
I'll go next. I'm Pamela Leong, Director of Engineering, and thank you for having me here today. Look forward to it.
Hello, everyone. I can go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, sure. My name is Kevin Wee. I'm a supervising air quality engineer with the Air District in the Engineering Division. My pronouns are he, him, and I'm going to pass it over to Alex Stone.
Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Stone from the Office of Rule Development and Strategic Policy Division, and I'm the staff lead on amendments of Rule 1118. Who should I pass it to next?
I'll go. Hi, everyone. I'm Grace Leung. I'm with Compliance and Enforcement Division, and I used to be the area inspector in Richmond. Now I work in operations for compliance enforcement.
I'll go next. I'm Sandy Crockett, General Counsel in the Legal Division, and I'll pass it to Janet.
Hi, everyone. My name is Janet Carrasco. I'm also in operations with compliance and enforcement, and I'm basically Grace's backup for that role.
I can go. Hi, everyone. My name is Samuel Garcia. I've been working on the plan for a few years, and I'm in the Planning and Climate Protection Division.
I'm Victor Douglas. I'm the Director of the Rules and Strategic Policy Division, and I'm not sure who else is on here from the Air District.
I will go. I'm Robert Cave. I'm a Senior Air Quality Engineer in Rules and Strategic Policy under Victor and working with Alex Sun.
Okay, great. I think that was everyone online. And just want to mention that we do have some Air District staff here in person, but those are all familiar faces that you know. So I think we'll go ahead and skip those introductions and keep moving with our meeting. So if we can go ahead and screen share the slides. Thank you so much, Joey. They are up, and I will pass it over to one of the co-leads to get us started. So Marisol.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. Marisol. First, I just want to welcome you and all of our CSC members, our staff, in person, online, and to any of our public attendees to our 40th Path to Clean Air meeting, and Happy New Year, as this is our first meeting of 2025. Next slide, please. Okay, so we'll quickly go over the agenda. We're moving into the approval of the minutes. We'll then talk about the level of engagement of some of our actions for the first year and align on those. The co-leads will have some updates. Then we'll talk about the recruitment plan ad hoc. They will also bring in some updates on how our recruitment is going. And then we'll take a break at 6:10. After that, most of the meeting will focus on Rule 1118. Air District staff will quickly do an overview of that. We're welcoming some guests tonight from Communities for Better Environment, CBE, to talk about their experiences with the last settlement. So there'll also be a Q&A for that. And then we'll get into 2 different breakout rooms to do a discussion in each about our understandings of 1118 and moving that forward and how it relates to our plan. Finally, we'll go over some next steps for our next meeting, and of course, we'll close out. Any questions? Anything for agenda review before we move on? Beautiful. Nothing online. We're gonna go ahead and thank you. So these have been reviewed by the co-leads many, many times. Raise your hand, say your name, especially for online. And one mic, please, especially here in the room space. If you need to have a conversation, step out. And then share your video if you are online. Some of us as co-leads are there. Especially, I would encourage y'all when CBE comes in so that they're not seeing blank faces and that you're able to build a relationship with them as they come in. And of course, technology happens. It already happened today. So be flexible and patient as it's always elusive. And finally, use a Zoom chat or raised hands. Next slide. Okay. Also, we have gone over these many times. One mic, one voice, be respectful. Hopefully you had time to review the materials prior to the meeting. Take care of yourself, stretch, breaks, water, all of it. Popcorning or passing the mic is really encouraged. We'll use a progressive stack as we always do, but we'll also in the breakout rooms really want to popcorn to different folks. And Dr. Matosa will be leading the online breakout discussion later today. Great. I think we are ready.
Question?
Yeah.
When we're in person, what's the best way to engage with the chat? Should we be logging into Zoom and putting in?
You don't have to. You can definitely raise
So
your
in the
hand.
middle of whatever is fine.
Yeah, you
Okay,
can
great.
raise your hand, of course, and
Okay,
then
great.
I think that's what the practice has always been.
Perfect, thank you.
Good.
It was more for the people online, so that we
use
know, so that we know that they have a question or comment. Yeah.
Great. And meeting goals. Okay, so of course we'll go into our approval of our minutes. We will align on our actions for year one, updates, recruitment ad hoc, and 1118. Next slide. And I am passing this to Laura.
Hi, everyone, it's Laura. So you might be used to seeing our nice, pretty visual from last year, but we have not updated that yet. So to talk about where we're at today before we update for 2025, I've got a couple bullets. So we're shifting into 2025. Wanted to highlight that there are some agenda planning efforts underway to start to think about the 2025 topics for your CSC meetings, and there's been some good thought process there, and that will continue. We'll give an update on that soon, probably next meeting, but wanted to flag that so that you're all aware. And then also thinking forward a little bit further into the year, we are anticipating the year one annual report. So that will be finalized by Q4 2025, and we'll be developing that out towards the second half of the year so we can see where what we've accomplished with the year one implementation plan. And hand it back for the next slide. Great.
Question, can we have a link to the 24 report, annual report, just so it can be at the top of our, maybe in the minutes? Was there a 24?
So not yet. So this will be the first annual report of like the implementation phase.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have a question. What period is that going to cover?
Yeah, so it's gonna cover the same period as the year one implementation plan. So it's October 2024 to October 2025, beginning of October, so the end of September.
Not 25.
Yeah.
October 25.
Yeah.
October
of this last year, 1 year forward, so through September of 2025. That will be like yeah.
We didn't, it wasn't like approved until like, what was it, November of this year by a CARB. So I'm confused.
Yeah, I mean, if there are any concerns about that, we can totally discuss it and see. But we're trying to kind of align it so that the year one implementation plan will report on that
right? And then we'll shift into year 2. So it'll basically be October to October, October to October, moving forward.
So like
Yeah.
75% of it is going to say we weren't actively implementing it until.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's a little tricky. It's also because like work already started on the year 1 plan before it got approved by the CSC. So like there will be a good amount, I think, to be reporting on.
Okay.
It will include everything from before as well. So basically, I guess it's starting on October, but at least like the end date will be the more solid one that makes a little bit more sense.
Okay. And it's annual reporting. You're gonna do it annually, but I guess we're October to September. But you're doing it annually by calendar.
No. So it'll align with the year 1 plan.
Okay.
Yes, I think that makes it simplest.
Yeah.
For everyone. Yeah.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
October to October. I think so.
Any other questions? And any questions online? Before we get into the approval of the minutes. Okay, no hands raised, great. So we're going to, are there any edits to the minutes for the December 9th, 2024 meeting? There are no edits to the minutes. We will then go into public comments. If there are any public comments on the minutes, beautiful. And then we're asking for the CSC for a motion.
I motion to approve the December 9th.
Do we have a second? Who was it? We still need a second.
A second.
Thanks, Heidi. Heidi, okay? Yes. Thank you. Was the first, Heidi is the second. Can we get a roll call vote?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll go ahead and get started with roll call. If I call your name, just respond with either yes, no, or you can abstain from voting on the December 9th meeting minutes. So Nancy Aguirre?
Yes.
Thank you. Luna Angulo Castro?
Yes.
Ianad Burrell?
Same.
Marisol Cantu?
Yes.
Suzanne Coffey?
Yes.
Michelle Gomez Garcia?
Yes.
Lisbeth Ibarra?
Yes.
Thank you. Jeffrey Kilbreth? Dr. Matoso?
Yes. I'm sorry, did I come through? This is Jeff.
Okay, great. Are you voting yes for the meeting minutes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Matoso, I got your yes. Jessica Range?
Yes.
Simran Sandhu?
Yes.
Dave Severy?
Yes.
Heidi Swillinger?
Yes.
And then Franklin Ungo. Okay, so that concludes the vote for the meeting minutes, and they are approved. So I'll pass that to you, Michael.
Thank you. Next slide. Okay, so we're getting into an agenda item where we do need our folks to align on our level of engagement. So this has been a conversation of how we will engage the implementation plan and all of the different actions. And last conversation, there was a breakout room, 2 breakout rooms, and there was not all actions had been aligned on. There was further conversation with different CSC members who had brought up really good points about wanting to move from one level of engagement to a higher level of engagement around certain items. And so that's what we're going to discuss today. Okay. Next slide. So just to refresh your memory, there are 3 levels of engagement. One is informed, one is consulted, and the other is involved. And there was quite a bit of conversation around moving some from informed, where it's more of a passive, we would get the information and then have to log in on our own and then make public comments, which can be really grueling as working folks, students, etc. And so there was conversation around moving some of those from informed to consulted, where the Air District would come in and consult the CSC on those, and we would be able to provide feedback, ask questions, but then it would also create a cycle of accountability because we would be able to come back and say, what did you actually do with that feedback? And so that was really critical for us, and learning about those concerns from the CSC. And so we're going to go over some of those, but really what the CSC co-leads would like to propose and align on, we're not really voting on this, but aligning that the ones that were informed move to consulted. And so that's our proposal to y'all, where the Air District would come in and we would be able to provide feedback and hold them accountable. Any questions on the level of engagement chart before we go to the next slide? People remember the differences between informed, consulted, and involved. Great. Anything online? Okay. And Wendy's, okay, thank you. We'll get to that. Anything else online? Okay, around this. Perfect, thank you. So these are the ones that we're now recommending that we increase our level of involvement to. So first, it was the flaring. Flaring has been a huge issue in our community. We've heard it multiple times from our CSC, and a lot of work in our CERP has been around flaring. And so we originally had recommended we be informed of the rules that are being developed by the rules division, and then we could participate as we will according to our own schedules. Upon further review, we are asking to align that this goes to involved, especially because this is ongoing. They're actively working on getting this underway. The Air District is, and the Rules Division is. And so this is really critical for us as it's a priority in year 1. Flaring has been a priority within our community for decades. So that's the first. The second is a marine and rail, which is carbs regulation. We had felt, some of us, that this was kind of out of our scope, the Air District, because it goes to carb. But again, we wanted to listen to the CSC and change this from, oh, sorry, we're not changing this. We're staying consulted to this one. So that would be the same, everybody generally aligned. The second one is a dust white paper, a third one is a dust white paper. And that would be the same. We would be consulted on that process. So on this slide, only the flaring has changed.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, this is Dr. Motosho. Just to clarify, for the flaring one, we're going from initially informed. Some people thought involved, but we actually are recommending consent.
Great.
Could you say that again?
We had initially recommended informed prior to the last meeting, but we've actually changed it to actually consulted for 4 and 5 and 2.6. We actually bumped it up to being consulted now. Just want to make sure.
The CSC had wanted involved, but also for the capacity issues, involved requires 2 members to actively be liaisons to that. And we didn't actually have 2 volunteers to do that work and go to those meetings and work with Air District staff more heavily. So instead of having 2 people be involved, we're asking the air district to come in so we can all be involved through consulting.
Yep, that makes sense. I just wasn't understanding the chart, but now I get it.
Good. Other questions? Yeah.
I just want to clarify the things that have already been done, like the dust white paper. We all know that's been done over a year ago. But what you're really talking about is the subsequent actions that are coming thereafter, like the rulemaking, which I think last I looked it was happening. I don't know what the latest is on it. I just want to clarify that. Yes, okay.
Any questions online, especially around 2.6 and changing these levels of engagement?
I have another question. Yeah. On that one, I personally am fine with it, but I guess for those that maybe wanted it to be involved, I'm curious as to whether there's capacity for doing that once our CSC recruitment completes. We have more people, more capacity once the recruitment is completed and we're onboarding new members.
I think we want our implementation plan to be as flexible as possible. And I think we can come back to that if there are folks that would like to. I think we still want to have our CSC new members fully understand the CERP. So that may take a while still too. I wouldn't want somebody to also, or us not give them the opportunities to learn the work first before we ask them to take on a huge task. So as long as we have the capacity to support them, and I would say not just like air district staff support them, but community CSC to support new members. I think that's really critical. Great. And did you have any other questions about these? We do have Victor online from the rules division. Did you, Jessica, sorry, did you want to ask another question specifically about the rule around the white? Okay, I just want to make sure. Thank you, Victor, for bringing that into the space. Okay, we're going to move to the next slide. Great. All of these are the same. These were recommended as consulted, which would mean the folks would come directly, their district would come directly into the meeting. And that's regarding 4.1, the metals white paper, fuel refining 2.2, which is about expanding communications around flaring, and then health 2.1, which is wood burning. So we would be asking similarly to what you're going to see today, where rules is coming in and we're doing a deep dive into 1118. We would be doing a deep dive into 1212 or the wood burning paper or any of the metals, etc. So we're going to be topical essentially every meeting. Okay. Next. Oh, any questions online for this one? Great. If not, we will go to the next slide. Beautiful. Other questions, clarity online, different folks. In person. Great.
So look, it's fine. I just wanted to uplift what Saul was talking about earlier is because we're just coming to alignment and we're not making an action item vote. We're coming to alignment. That means that this creates the flexibility to move whichever way we need to move to. Like say in consulting, we realize, wait, we need to be more involved in what's happening, then we as a CSC can shift that way. So I just want to make sure like everyone is clear on that because we're not doing an action vote. roll call, making it super set in stone, that this gives us flexibility to, you know, maybe we get into something, we realize, okay, we don't need to be as involved, we can now we can be informed. So I just want to make sure that we share that, like everyone kind of gets that idea that it's like our plan, it's a flexible working document, and we'll pivot and shift and move with what needs our attention the most. At least that's the way I see it. So I just wanted to put that out there. Cause I see Jessica's wheels moving.
I
All
appreciate
right,
it.
we'll talk later. Thank you, so.
And Jeffrey has a question online. Go ahead, Jeff.
I mean, I totally agree that, you know, flexibility is the, you know, the natural approach. We have a lot of balls in the air, and they will move at different speeds, and they're of different importance, et cetera. But I guess what I want to know is, for things that we're not specifically working on, that we haven't prioritized, and we're putting actual effort into participating in the, you know, the forward movement. And it's in kind of a monitoring state, and maybe we're not going to get a presentation for 6 months around, you know, where things stand or what the Air District believes it wants to do. You know, right? That would be an obvious time when the Air District might say, hey, we think it's time to bring this issue. So how do we get a sense of, you know, the rate of progress and whether anything important is falling behind? You know, and, you know, obviously we go to these key examples often, but flaring would be an example. You know, at what kind of monitoring, what kind of status should, if we have any kind of function that's at all analogous to a board of directors, you know, I mean, I don't know how you think of what our role is, but if our role is to bird dog making the CERP successful, then, you know, we care about all these balls that are in the air. How do we monitor whether things are falling behind or, you know, really zooming forward, you know, that kind of thing? It seems to me that there's a report that we should be getting monthly that's a status report on the work that's in progress, so that, you know, we get some kind of independent, you know, fact-based idea of the rate of progress on things. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you, Jeff. It's a really good question. And it really talks about the need for accountability and community participation, and also about timelines. And so I would go to our Air District staff to see what is possible on actually, at least what I'm hearing, Jeff, is a need for a update at our CSC meetings, specifically around some of the actions, whether it be a chart on showing where they're at on the spectrum of movement, or quick updates around those. We, in our implementation plan, actually don't have an implementation subcommittee like we did with the problems to solution, which does create an issue that we don't have a smaller group of core members looking at all of the moving parts and getting those updates. And so I would put it and pose it to staff to see what would be the most, oh, thank you. And also Victor, around what that might look like. I'll go ahead and ask, please, Victor.
To the point you're making, what I can do is commit to attending these meetings and giving you an update on the status of the rules. Also, some of the rules that we're getting ready to initiate will have, like the flaring rule, we're getting ready to kick that off. And it will have we're forming what we're calling a refinery technical working group. and we're going to be looking for participants from your CSC to participate on that. So you're in the process of the rulemaking as we consult with unions, the refineries, Contra Costa County, and other entities on developing this rule and other things like we want to develop what we call a flaring 101, which is a tutorial on the flaring process. So to better inform the community and the participants on what is going on with flaring, what are the why flaring occurs, what are the different types of flares, and what process units are associated with that. So that's one of the ways we plan to engage with community and your CSC on our rulemaking.
And Allison?
Thanks, Victor. To add to that, planning staff is working on a dashboard, and the idea is that we would provide those updates to folks in a regular manner, and it would be something that you could go to the webpage and see. So we're excited to preview that later this spring for folks.
It might be great to have milestones, like what's the next major milestone for every activity, right? I mean, that would be the kind of the starting point. What's coming next? What's most important next?
And I have a recommendation too it's great. Thank you, Victor, for that suggestion and the other. Can we think about a quarterly summary? It's great to see we can have this every month, but then if there was an opportunity to summarize that quarterly, that way we can look at it more for myself and maybe others more holistically. Not adding work, but all that in a quarterly summary, whether it's a presentation here or on this website link that was just mentioned, either way.
Thank you for bringing that up, Iana and Jeff. I believe that is also in our plan to have those quarterly reports and all of that. That's part of our plan. So now it's because we're getting into implementation, it's now time to start implementing those exact things. So thank you for bringing that up, Iana and Jeff.
Thank you. And thank you, Victor. We are, if there's no other questions, running a little late, so we're eating into y'all's break. So any public comment on this before we don't see any public comment? We're gonna move into our next item really quickly with Nancy.
Yay. All right, next slide, please. All right, well, as all of you know, we had our quarterly meeting or holiday social gathering on the 13th, and I want to thank everyone who came and those who planned to but couldn't make it. After all, we definitely want to get everyone to get to the next one. And then we did have a CSC Leads BAAQMD Legal Division meeting that Sol and I attended, and there was a lot of information, but they are looking at ways of being more inclusive and creating workshops for us to be more involved, for CSC to become more involved. That is just in the starting phases, so we do not have a process quite yet, or have not heard about a process quite yet. So it was more of like, this is what we want to do, we need your feedback, more to come. And then we are having ongoing collaboration with our BAAQMD staff here. We're excited to hear that Joelle is now joining us and that she's CSC, past CSC. But we have been working with our core team here to align and work towards a more CSC centered, diverse community, like put us in the forefront, right? So please prepare, let's see, in preparing for 2025 CSC meeting, agenda topics, like, thank you for all your feedback. We know you like the breakouts, and so as you know, we have CBE here today, so we're moving forward and looking at how all those processes will work and come together to bring us center in the CSC meetings. And again, feel free to reach out to any of the co-leads on anything you see on how we can do that or be your voice on that feedback. And I think that's it. I'll pass it back to Sol. Oh, sorry. Any questions or clarifying observations? Seeing none, hearing none. So, oh, public comment. I forget it. It's been a while. Any public comment? There's no public comment. Thank you, Carissa. Okay, now for real, Sol.
I'm gonna pass it right over to Ian for some quick recruitment plan ad hoc updates.
You know, ain't too many things quick over here now. We got some exciting things to talk about.
Very good.
We are thrilled. Let's talk about it. The next slide. We know that we had Happy New Year for anyone I did not say Happy New Year to. We met on the 7th, right after, is it dry January for everyone we did? So we had started our dry January, and we are meeting tomorrow we're gonna do some more meetings. So this is the ad hoc committee. Who are the members of the ad hoc? Myself. I want them to hear your name.
Jessica, sorry.
Suzanne.
Myself.
Me.
And Nancy.
Okay now, we worked hard. No, this is like a really Herculean lift, like everything is. So the applications were good. We did some great outreach. We did a lot of community engagement. For those who, not anybody that really knows, but who can guess how many applications as of today that we have? Throw out a number. Not staff or just throw out a number. 8. Next.
17.
Oh, did you look at the list?
No.
17. Do you hear me? 17 great applications. And when I tell you they are amazing people, every last one of them are amazing. So really, really good applications. We did our outreach with our email template, flyers. We had a tracking sheet. The flyer, I'm so happy. Yes, I want to give credit for myself for putting in that photo. I said, we need some humanistic touch. Bring up a photo. Those that were at the event in San Pablo. So as you can see, we reached out to 25 plus organizations, 10 plus applications were received. We completed our review today. Our closing was, the applications were live as of today. So, and thank you for everyone who supported. Next slide. Here we go with the timeline. We know that today is the 27th, so the application's closed. We're doing some, Nina, I really like Nina. She's just amazing. But if she asked me to hold one more date, I said, Nina, I can only hold so many dates. But thank you so much. When I tell you Nina has responded to every single email, I'll be at midnight. And sometimes she'll do it midnight 01, but every now and then I'll get it in the morning. So thank you, Nina, for just responding to everything. The way the applications were done, our drop down, our review was super easy and very user-friendly. We're doing our scoring from the 28th to the 31st. That's just Friday. And then as you can see, we're gonna start setting up interviews. We have interviews in the day, some in the evening. We've given slots. They have not been set up yet, but we've given those slots. Then as you can see, right before Love Day and then on Love Day. So we may be doing some meetings on Valentine's Day or some other things on Valentine's Day for some. And then we're gonna start voting. This is us. We're not in a capsule. We're not in a silo. It's gonna be a collective. I think you're gonna have some hard choices. I think we have, how many slots, everyone?
20?
No, left.
10.
Oh, 10.
That means almost half of who we have now. We may need to make some room for some, I don't know, those that may say, oh, I don't know. That's a thought. This just came to me. Let's think about a bucket of, I'm not trying to make a motion or anything, but a bucket of individuals that may not have made that 10 because folks may have some some triggers.
Mhm.
No pun intended. And so we're gonna build in scheduling times, onboarding and everything else. So it has really been, it's been fun. Any feedback from any of our other folks who are on the committee of the applications? It was really funny because some would say who told them to to apply, refer us, so they told me I need to apply. Okay, well, tell it, which was cool. But any other feedback? I love the applications. They're really, really good.
Yeah, just quick update, it's actually 20 as of 5 o'clock.
What you say?
21
What you say?
21 as of 5 o'clock.
Y'all better watch out. This room gonna be full with cappuccinos. That's exciting. Oh my God, 21. That's really good. So can we talk about maybe at another time how we set aside a group that, yeah. Any other feedback? Any other additions to this?
From CSC members, any comments? Yes.
I just want to second the organization. I think it was led by Nina.
I mean, Nina is
that was
amazing.
amazing. You had it all set up in this Excel spreadsheet. It was super easy to look at and links and everything. I did not need to ask any questions.
Yes, thank you.
I have sorry to interrupt, but I can't raise my hand for some reason. I have a question. It's Heidi.
Go ahead,
Yes,
Heidi.
Heidi.
Yeah, Heidi.
Thank you. I hate the thought of having to turn people away, especially if these are all fabulous applicants. And I'm just wondering if we could put some thought into a role for these people, some sort of role. You know, I don't even have an idea about it right now, but I just would like to consider something like that, a discussion of some sort at some point about what we do with the people that don't make the cut. To keep them involved, in other words, somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely we should discuss that. Thank you, Heidi. Anyone else? Yeah, online? If not, next, any public comments?
There's no hands for public comment.
Oh, okay. Okay, I'll pass it back to you.
Great, next slide. And our break is now 5 minutes. No. Be back in 5 minutes, 6:24. Thank you. I have more questions. Yeah. Thank you. Welcome back, everybody. We are. Sorry. We're back now. Wonderful. We are going to begin our next topic, which is going to be Rule 1118. We're going to just go over an overview. This is a rule that is related to our plan in multiple ways. And so Laura's going to share a little bit more about this. And this came directly from our CSC wanting to really be consulted about 1118, as there's a lot of moving parts currently. So I'm going to pass it right over to Laura. Next slide, please.
Okay, so where is Rule 1118 in the Pass and Clean Air plan? It is in the plan a pretty decent amount. We spent a lot of time talking about 1118, especially in the fuel refining writing group. So there are 2 different strategies that contain 8 individual actions that pertain to Rule 1118. There's fuel refining strategy 4, which is focused on reducing exposure and public health impacts from toxic air contaminants
emitted by the fuel refining sector. And then there's also commercial and industrial sources strategy for large industrial sources. So in terms of trying to summarize the types of actions for Rule 1118 in the plan, they're basically either around improving the overall implementation process for the rule as a whole, so how the rule works when it's implemented. And then there's also actions that are specific to implementing the rule at an individual facility. So next slide. This lays out the action that's around improving the overall implementation process. So fuel refining action 4.1 says to amend Rule 1118 to improve the stringency of the rule, how strong it is, how efficient it is to implement it, transparency around that, and also public engagement. And that is a big undertaking. So it was outlined as a two-step amendment process because rule amendments can take quite a long time. So rather than waiting to do both at once, it's put into this two-step process, with the first being to focus on improvements to efficiency, transparency, and public engagement, so we can get those done faster. And then the second will focus more on assessing stringency and how the rule could be made stronger. Next slide. So these are all the rest of the actions that are specific to Rule 1118 in the plan. And so FR 4.2 says to prioritize implementation of the rule for Chevron. Heard that loud and clear, so that is written in there. FR 4.3 is to implement the rule at Chemtrade, because that's also a very large, high priority facility in the area. 4.4 is kind of the backstop rule. It covers everything else. So any other fuel refining or non-fuel refining facility in the Path to Clean Air area, saying implement the rule at those applicable facilities, and also provide regular updates on how implementation is going for all of the facilities that are in the area. Then lastly, we've got the commercial industrial sources that are not specifically in fuel refining. So CNI 4.1 is saying implement it at large facilities. 4.2 is an action specific to Levin general, and within that it kind of doubles down, acknowledging that that is a Rule 1118 facility, so the rule should be implemented there as well. Same deal with CNI 4.3 for Gold Bond or New NGC Inc. and CNI 4.4 for the West Contra Costa County landfill. And then did want to also call out that BNSF shows up in the plan. That's a Rule 1118 facility being looked at. And there are a couple of other facilities on the list. So that, I think, sums it up in terms of what actions in the plan are calling out 1118. Go to the next slide. Yeah. Okay, so I'm gonna hand this off to my colleague, Alex Sohn. He's in the Rural Development Division. I worked with him when I was in that group for over 6 years. Really great, really smart. And he is working on the process of amending Rule 1118. So I'll hand it to Alex now.
Thanks, Laura. Hello, everyone. My name is Alex Sohn from the Office of Rural Development and Strategic Policy Division, and I'm here to provide an overview of Rule 1118. And today's aim here is to provide a foundational understanding to Rule 1118 and how it works. So what is the purpose of Rule 1118? The rule ensures that facility that emit toxic air contaminants, or is commonly referred to as TACs, do not pose an unacceptable health risk to nearby people that include residents, workers, or students. I know that many of you are aware of terminologies typically used in Air District's toxic program, but just to make sure that everyone is on the same page, here are some key definitions that will be used throughout the presentation. Toxic air contaminants, or TACs. Toxic air contaminants refer to air pollutants that cause or are suspected of causing cancer, birth defects, or other serious harms. Health risk refers to potential for adverse human health effects resulting from exposure to the types of toxic air contaminants released into the air. In the sub-bullet below, it lists varying adverse health effects that may occur due to exposure to tax. Next slide, please. Health risk assessment, or also referred to as HRA for short, is an analysis that estimates the potential for increased likelihood of health risk for individuals in the affected population that may be exposed to emissions of one or more toxic air contaminants. So HRA, or health risk assessment, is essentially an analysis that is performed to convert toxic air contaminant emissions data to a health risk. Risk reduction plan, or commonly referred to as RRP, a document that identifies, among other things, sources, quantities, and causes of emissions responsible for exceedance of any of the risk action levels, and details risk reduction measures that will be implemented to reduce risk. Risk reduction measures, it refers to practices that are required to be implemented as part of a risk reduction plan that reduce toxic or contaminant emissions or that reduce health risks at the facility being evaluated. To provide an example of risk reduction measures, so this includes changes to production processes, feedstock, product formulation, emission point locations, emission capture and dispersion mechanisms, and the installation of toxic best available retrofit control technology, or referred to as TBART, or other control devices. So there are multiple risk reduction measures available in reducing health risk from a source of toxic emissions. Next slide, please. So why is Rule 1118 important? So the rule applies to existing facility, many of which are in Bay Area communities that face a variety of public health challenges. Approximately 350 permitted facilities are expected to be screened under Rule 1118. The existing facilities subject to the rule include Chevron Richmond Refinery and West Contra Costa County Landfill, just to provide examples of Rule 1118 facilities. The rule is the most comprehensive and health protective regulation in the United States that addresses community health impacts and risk from toxics. The rule establishes limit for cancer risk as well as non-cancer risk, which include chronic hazard and acute hazard risk. Next slide, please. So there are three key steps in implementing Rule 1118, which are emissions inventory, health risk assessment, and risk reduction plan steps. So first step is the emissions inventory. So during this step, the Air District updates and approves toxic emissions inventory for a given facility. This is an important step in the process, as current and accurate toxic emissions inventory is a key consideration in the entire process. The second step is the health risk assessment. As I mentioned before, HRA, or health risk assessment, is a way for us to convert the toxic emissions data along with input for health risk assessment model to estimate health risks to nearby receptors or communities. And in this step, first, the Air District finalizes the model and protocol to input into the health risk assessment model. Then the Air District runs the model and produces the health risk assessment results. We publish the draft health risk assessment result for public review and comment for 90 days. Once the public comment period ends, the Air District consider all comment received, then finalize and compare the risk results to the threshold in the rule. Based on the final health risk assessment result, the Air District determines if a risk reduction plan is required for this specific facility. And the last step of the Rule 1118 implementation is the risk reduction plan step. If risk reduction plan is required for a facility prepares a risk reduction plan and submits a plan to the Air District for review. Air District reviews the risk reduction plan for accuracy and determine whether proposed plan meets all the requirements of the rule. Then Air District then publishes the risk reduction plan for public review and comments for 45 days. Then after considering all comments received and the risk reduction plan is finalized, then Air District, the facility implements the control from the risk reduction plan to reduce risk. Next slide, please. So this slide is an overview of facilities' role in the Rule 1118 process. In the emissions inventory step, the facility submits data for emissions inventory, including material usage data and other information. If facility requests a review of the emissions inventory, the air district will inform the facility of the specific emissions inventory data that will be used for the health risk assessment. However, the air district does have the authority to determine which is the most accurate emissions data that will be used for the health risk assessment. In the health risk assessment or draft risk reduction plan step, the facility can comment on draft health risk assessment and the risk reduction plan while out on public notice. If the health risk assessment determines that risk action level from the rule is exceeded and requires a risk reduction plan, facility needs to submit a proposed risk reduction plan for the air district for review. And upon air district approval of the risk reduction plan, the facility must implement risk reduction measures in the risk reduction plan. And next slide, please. So here's a high-level overview of the entire Rule 1118 implementation process. So starting on the left side, the air district initiates review for facility based on existing toxic emissions inventory. Then second step is once the air district determines that a facility needs to be screened under Rule 1118, the air district updates the toxic emissions inventory and collects the data needed for the health risk assessment. And once the draft health risk assessment result is available for review, the air district publishes it for public comment and review for 90 days, denoted by is the first star on the left on that line. And once the air district consider all comments received, the air district approves the health risk assessment. So if facility is required to submit a risk reduction plan, the facility submits the risk reduction plan. After air district reviews the risk reduction plan for compliance with the requirements of the rule, the risk reduction plan is published for public review and comment for 45 days. And this is denoted by the star on the right. And after considering all comments, the air district approves the risk reduction plan. And after approval, the facility must complete implementation of all the measures within the risk reduction plan within 5 years of the approval of the risk reduction plan. And next slide, please. And that is it for my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any question that you may have.
Great. We'll start in the room first. Leonard, and then DK, and then Dave, and then Jessica. And then we'll go directly into online, and I see you, Jeff.
Thank you for the presentation. A couple of questions. How does the community find out that there's public comment available to make on one of the violations?
Is the question regarding like violation of like implementation of Rule 1118 or like violation in general? I kind of cut out on my end a little bit, so I just wanted some clarification on my end.
You gave several examples where it said 45 days for public comment or some feedback. I forgot the word you used. How does community find out that's available?
So I believe we will be posting on our webpage that, update regarding, when Rule 1118, whether it's the draft health risk assessment or draft risk reduction plan goes out for a comment. I think if you're subscribed to the 1118 update page, I believe we will send notification. Maybe Kevin or Pam, maybe you can kind of chime in here since you guys may be more familiar with the implementation aspect.
Sure. This is Pam. Hello, engineering. And yes, so we'll be doing outreach also when the time comes to let the community know that the a draft HRA or the risk reduction plan is available for review. So we plan to strategize with, community engagement and other and partners in the community to let folks know that it's available.
Thank you. The next question, I think I heard you say the entity will have 5 years to correct if I'm gonna say the word violation, that's probably not the right word, is found. If they have 5 years to fix it, what happens within of the impact in that 5 years to residents, to community? Not BAAQMD anymore, it's bad.
So,
No pun intended.
I can give an attempt at this, providing a response. Maybe Victor, you can chime in. But so once a risk reduction plan is approved, there will be risk reduction measures within the plan, that facility will have to implement to comply with the rule. And so what that 5-year deadline is, that the facility will have 5 years to implement all the risk reduction measures in the rule, and not necessarily if you won't be providing 5 years if for specific risk reduction measures that can be completed within the less allotted time. So when Air District reviews the risk reduction plan, we'll see what is a realistic time that we can expect for completion of certain risk reduction measure. And that may be less than 5 years based on our review and expertise. And that deadline will be placed in the risk reduction plan. So that 5 year from the approval of risk reduction plan is, as I mentioned, is the deadline to complete all the risk reduction measure, and not necessarily all the risk reduction measure that may be required under the plan. I saw Victor's hand up. Did you have anything to add, Victor? You're on mute.
This aspect of the rule is one of the things we're looking at in terms of amendments to the rules. We recognize that 5 years may not be, amenable to people in the community who have been dealing with the impacts of a facility for years, if not decades. And so one of the things we're looking at is the possibility of ensuring that if measures can be implemented sooner than 5 years, then that will be something that we will make the facility include in the plan a more expedited implementation plan.
And is there any more questions, Ina?
No.
Thank you. I want to just, for the sake of time, we do have an entire breakout session where both rules division will be in here and online. So we'll ask specifically how it relates to community, how it's community centered, how it relates to our plan. If you have a question that you need to clarify, you don't understand a part of the presentation, please ask that. If it is opining or anything else, please wait until we go into discussion, because we have a lot of time in discussion to ask questions, and there will be rules division staff in both the in-person and online discussion of how we can make this more community centered, and y'all can get more understanding. So I'm gonna use a progressive stack. Anybody here that is clarify Alex's presentation?
I just need clarification on how it works in terms of, you have these terms, action levels, and then there's terms like if you exceed a certain level, then it's not an action level, but something else, and then what if there's any hard limits?
So I think you're referring to the risk action level, and so that refers to I guess the level that's limited by Rule 1118. So there are 3 potential outcomes after health risk assessment is performed, and that is based on the risk action level. So the facility goes through the process of having the health risk assessment being performed. Then there's a certain health risk value that is estimated for a given facility. and that is compared to what's called risk action level in the rule. And if the what's estimated for a facility is less than the risk action level, then facility won't have to submit a risk reduction plan. And another potential outcome is if facility is above the risk action level, the estimated health risk greater than risk action level, and if a facility is capable of getting capable of reducing the health risk to below the risk action level, then facility must reduce their risk to below the risk action level. So the last scenario is if facility health risk estimated is greater than the risk action level, and the area district determines that the facility's posed health risk cannot be below the risk action level, then there is requirement in the rule that requires what's called significant sources of health risk to install what's called best available retrofit control technology for toxics, or TBART. Or I think just to put it simply, they need to lower their health risk from this significant toxic source of emissions. And once they install best available retrofit control technology for toxics for these significant sources at the facility, and the facility has sufficiently proved they cannot get below this risk action level of the rule, then the facility will be in compliance with the rule. I hope that makes sense, but yeah, let me know if you have any questions on my clarification there.
Okay, go to Sandra first online.
Thank you. Just quick clarifying question. This only applies to existing facilities, correct? Or would it be for any new potential development? Because I know that has to go through the CEQA process and monitoring programs and things like that. So this is only for existing facilities that are producing some sort of health risk emissions.
So I'll try to provide some clarification, and after I provide some explanation there, anyone from engineer, feel free to chime in here. So the reason why we distinguish between existing and new facility is that, so in order for facilities to be screened, whether they will be subject to Rule 1118, we need to have their toxic emissions inventory data, and that's something that we acquire through area district permitting program, which only we so it's something we obtain through the permitting program. So for any new facility that has recently applied for a permit, since it takes about a year for the facility to go through what's called permit renewal cycle, and that's when the facility is required to submit their emissions data. So even though it was new, when they submitted the permit, after a year, they technically will be evaluated as an existing facility. So that's why we kind of make that distinction there. So when a facility applies for permit and until they go through the single 1-year renewal cycle, we won't have the emissions data necessary to determine whether they will be subject to the rule. But after a year or two, we'll have the data and we can screen that facility to determine whether they should go through the Rule 1118 process or not. But so yeah, just to kind of make them I guess we just wanted to distinguish that out there, but that was a very good question.
Yeah, if you're worried about whether we do a thorough analysis for toxic and health risk for a new source, we do. It's called Toxics New Source Review. It's Regulation 2.5. So we look at the entire project when it's new, and it must pass stringent health risk requirements as well. This is where it's 10 in a million for cancer risk, and in a overburdened community, it's 6 in a million. So it's actually more stringent for a new source coming into an overburdened community. So that's why you might hear the difference between the Regulation 11 for an existing facility, because with new source review, we already have stringent requirements for health risk assessments.
Thank you. Okay, we are going to have full discussion in our breakout rooms, ask more questions around specifics, around a specific facility, whether it be Chemtrade, whether it be Chevron. Right now, we're gonna check for public comments on the next slide. If there are no public comments, we are going to invite, okay, no public comments. Next slide. We are going to invite CBE to share their perspective on 1118 and their settlement, which will get us caught up even more. And so we have Lujan here, or I think that's how we say their name, Lujane.
Hey there, nice to see everybody. Can you hear me okay? Okay, great. So this is going to be a little bit quick, and I'm sure, going to be a lot of questions. And unfortunately, we're not able to share our slides now because they're in the translation process, but they'll be shared with you after. And in the event that there are questions we don't get to, please feel free to reach out to me, and I'm going to pass all of your questions over to one of our lawyers who's worked on this case. So I'm going to go over the CBE versus BAAQMD case and some context into Rule 1118. And I realized I didn't fully introduce myself. My name is Lujane, and I work at CBE on the Richmond team as our Just Transition Coordinator. And really excited to be here and learn more about, find a ways to work together on implementing the CERP. And I'm going to provide just more information about CBE and what we do. So CBE stands for Communities for a Better Environment, and our mission is to build people power in California's communities of color and low-income communities by preventing and reducing pollution and building green, healthy, and sustainable communities and environments. And so we have a triad model where we incorporate community organizing, science and research, and legal advocacy. I know some of you on the CSC are CBE members as well, and so we are a member-led organization. And if you have interest in becoming a member, you can reach out to me and we'll plug you in. And so I'm just going to go over some context into the ABNI Iron Foundry in East Oakland, and then delve more into the legal case and underground rulemaking. And then finally going over the components of the settlement agreement, the agreement implementation, and then future shared work. So in terms of the context of the ABNI Iron Foundry in East Oakland, our team in East Oakland campaigned to rein in toxic emissions from one of their biggest polluters, which was the ABNI Iron Foundry. And so CBE sued ABNI under California Proposition 65, which requires that warnings be placed notifying the public of certain toxins, and with which ABNI had failed to comply. And so our organization obtained the hexavalent chromium emissions data from ABNI that formed the basis of that Prop 65 lawsuit via a BAAQMD process that we've been talking about, the Draft Health Risk Assessment, or HRA, which is pursuant to Rule 1118 that the Air District adopted in 2017. And so in terms of analyzing the ABNI draft HRA, our organization became concerned about how the Air District had drafted an implementation procedures document. So this shaped how the HRA was completed without public process on that implementation procedures document. And so while the Air District is allowed to adopt internal processes quickly and efficiently without public input, CBE argued that the process around the HRA was too important and the implementation procedures were too substantial to be internal. And so CBE sued the Air District in 2022, alleging that the district engaged in underground rulemaking. The implementation procedures document in 2020, CBE argued that it failed to comply with the Administrative Procedure Act. In the same lawsuit, CBE also sued ABNI for public nuisance. So this was in addition to our previously filed Prop 65 case. And so out of this legal case, we reached a settlement agreement where there are 3 components. And so the first one is BAAQMD withdrew its 2020 implementation procedures document and developed a new document with public notice and comment. And 2, BAAQMD began publicly outlining the HRA process for the next facilities on the list. And 3, there are regular meetings between BAAQMD, CBE, and the public. And so these meetings take place between all of these 3 groups, and they're being held every 6 months until September 2nd, 2028. And then in terms of the agreement implementation, ABNI, during this process, ABNI closed in 2022. And the implementation procedures document was recirculated with the opportunity for public input in December 2023. And CBE and the other settlement parties have continued to attend settlement meetings. And this really gives us the opportunity to share our priorities and make sure that we're on track. And then in terms of next steps, we're closely monitoring the HRA process for the next Tier 1 facilities, which is the Martinez Refining Company, or MRC, and the Chevron Richmond Refinery. And then finally, just closing, in terms of our future shared work, we're really eager to collaborate on the implementation of the CSC CERP. So as you know, there is a Chevron settlement where the city secured $550 million. And we really want to see those funds used to advance a just transition, improve air quality. And so there's a lot of overlap in our work, and we're really excited about working together. And then we'd also love to work on rules and rule updates regarding flaring monitoring and mitigation, refinery safety measures like those down in Los Angeles, along with emergency thresholds for industrial spare the air days. And also we want to make sure that the enforcement action settlement agreements are spent in impacted communities. So I'm going to pause there. I know we're almost out of time, but yeah, just really appreciate being here. And if there's time for questions, I'm happy to take them. Sorry, I haven't been able to look at the chat, but maybe I'll pause there.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Lujan, and nice to virtually meet you. I'm hoping to extend collaboration in the future. Remember, we're going to go into a larger breakout session, so if there's any questions specific to CBE, clarifying questions, please feel free. Any online? Okay, incredible. Thank you so much for coming in. We're gonna move to public comment, and then we're gonna, no public comment either? Okay, we're gonna move into our next agenda item, which is where we're gonna do a conversation. We're gonna have conversations both here and as they kicked me out to go, so we're on time. We're gonna do one here, and then we're also gonna do one in virtual space. And so Nancy's gonna be leading the one here, and we'll have a note taker as well and backup note taker. And so really in this time, I'm gonna pass it to Laura to give a quick update on the Air District and where the Air District is at. But it's really to expand our knowledge around 1118, ask more clarifying questions. In February, we are going to do a deeper dive into 1118 and really think about how this is gonna be even more community centered. Right now, it's really to understand where they're at in the process and to get a really good foundational knowledge, so we can do a deeper dive in February. So if we don't understand what's happening, this is a time for us to ask those questions, because we're not gonna have this again in February. We're gonna come in ready to really engage with the division and move forward. And so expecting everybody to really participate in this. And Laura, thank you. We're gonna get an update.
Yeah, thanks. So as Sol just said, this is a two-part presentation we really wanted to make today about like the foundational understanding, answering questions, getting all of that down. Because there isn't enough time today, that's why we have to kick it to February. There are things that are already actively being worked on in terms of solutions to issues that have come up with Rule 1118 implementation. Those have been in response to public input, including from this plan specifically and from CBE. So in February, we'll be able to dedicate some more time to talk about what those solutions are and how engagement with that might look. That'll talk about include transparency improvements, meetings with community and CBOs, as Lou Jane spoke about via the settlement agreement, as well as rule improvements via rule amendment concepts that have been put out. So yeah, again, just for today, trying to get that discussion open about like what we've heard so far today, knowing that in February we could dive more into the solutions and things about that.
Great. Next slide. Okay, so this is our activity, and I believe we're gonna move directly into our breakout rooms, if we're ready.
Yeah, so Joey, if we can go ahead and start opening up the breakout rooms.
All right, welcome back, everyone. Give us just a moment and we will have our report out. And I believe we're gonna start with Dr. I can start. All right, so I will go ahead and get us started on the report out while Nick gets back together here with us. So we had big questions. So we had big questions. We had several different questions in the what is clear or not clear to us. And one of that was the inventory, did it include volume and what did that say? Competition, thank you. Volume and competition, and we went into what that meant and how they inventory, how the air district inventories that. Our other question was, I can't read writing. That's okay. Was hearing, so questions on processes, and if it's just process or if it goes from process and then into like actual structures. And then we had questions about the transparency and what triggers an inventory, that from the community, what that involved, and then how we wanted to know more on the modeling and the data and where that's coming from. And then as you all were coming back in, we were talking about the last little bit of a facility adds in to their existing, how do we get that permitted, and what, we didn't quite finish that part. So that's kind of the questions. We got deep, y'all, in here. So I'm gonna pass it to Nee, and then we'll open it up from there. Go ahead, Nee.
Thank you. Yeah, we had similar questions, some of which were addressed. One was about the inventory, and we kind of talked about how there's an annual review of inventory, so it's an ongoing process. So that way they're not waiting for the particular company or industry to report when something new happens. And then another question was about, it's kind of related to the first one you have here, was about toxic weighted emissions, as how do we kind of determine if the model is working or if we need to adjust it? That's one big question. And then another one was also in terms of rule development and changes. You know, as a CSE, we're going to be involved with the process before we do public comment review period. But something that came up was, what influence or weight does public review or comment have on the actual final rule? And how do we determine that? Those were, I think, the biggest things. I don't know if anyone else from virtual had, yeah, but I think those are the biggest ones that stood out. Pass it back to you.
Dr. Sol, thank you. And we're gonna go to the next slide. Perfect. Anybody want to add from the discussion or have any questions? Go ahead.
Is it an annual update of their inventory? Yeah, okay.
Go ahead, Victor.
Yes, the toxic emissions inventory is updated annually. But the reason I raised my hand, I wanted to follow up on the question that Jeff had in our breakout room and some of the parameters associated with health risk assessment. Again, I'm not an expert on it, but I know the health risk assessment is a much better tool than just relying on toxic weighted emissions. In a health risk assessment, it looks at the parameters associated with the toxic emissions, the source of the emissions, the stack height, the temperature, the location of those emissions, and the toxicity of those emissions. Again, another parameter is the meteorology. The other parameter is the proximity of the receptors or the people being exposed to the toxic emissions. So all those things are factored into the health risk assessment, and it gives you a much more robust picture of the impact of those emissions than just the toxic weighted emissions, because you can have a source out on the Farallon Islands with the same level of toxic weighted emissions, but their impact it would be grossly different than, let's say, a Chevron in the community of Richmond. So you have to take those factors into account in the health risk assessment, and that gives you the estimated risk. Just wanted to share that.
Thank you. Any other questions before we move on? Again, we're going to be going into a deeper dive in Hakeem. You're here. Hi. Do you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question, a couple of questions. I guess the first one is that with HRAs, aren't we looking at sort of the individual with the maximum level of potential exposure, and that's if someone is outside for like 24 hours a day for X number of days. So how does that, I guess, how does that get determined as far as what is the maximal amount of exposure?
So
that's the first question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I'm gonna cut us off here because this is gonna go into, and that should have been asked in a discussion room, and I'm sorry that it wasn't, but we have 2 minutes before we actually close out. So if we go into a string of a whole bunch of questions right now, then we're gonna have people leaving our CSC meeting and not actually getting the answers. So I don't want us to get into a lot of questions and answers right now. We are gonna go into the 11/18 in February, and we're gonna have more time to go deeper into it. So we're just gonna do one question for Hakeem, and then we're gonna close out this. If you have an answer, I don't know if that was Kevin or if that was a Victor answering the one question, and then we can definitely come back in February.
Yep. And just the reason I tried to ask a couple of questions was because I'm in a web browser, I was not able to be put into the online room. and I wasn't acknowledged or noticed in the public room. So that's why I tried 2 questions, but 1 question right now is fine, and we can discuss more in February.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Well, I can attempt to answer. Yes. So when we look at the receptors, we take a look at different receptors. We take a look at 3 different categories of receptors. We take a look at the residential receptor, worker receptor, or student, because depending upon the type of receptors, then you have different exposure. For example, if you're just considering worker receptor, then you have to consider their location or their existence being in that location for just during the work hours, versus if you talk about residential receptor, then you assume a longer exposure for X number of years. I don't quote me on this one. I have to kind of go back to the guidance again, but I believe that we assume either 30 years or 40 years. Again, I'm happy to check that and get back to you if you want the exact number of years for the residential receptor. And then based on all of that location, the receptor on those locations, that we take a look at each receptor location, what would be the highest risk based on the project emissions. That's how we determine the worst case scenario for the receptor. I'm happy to dive in just a little bit deeper, just like Marisol was saying, maybe in February, I'll be more happy to talk more about that.
Great, thank you. We're gonna move on to public comment in the next one. And thank you for your patience. I know we're running behind. And the last slide. Okay, thank you. Our next meeting, just to confirm for everybody, is February 24th, Monday, of course, both here in this location and online. And we'll be sending out a quick poll to let us know if you'll be attending in person or online. And I believe, is there any question on this?
Yeah, 2 things. If we could go back to, I do recall there was a time that we asked everyone if they were okay with extending the meeting for 10 minutes to complete a subject. That did happen at one time, didn't it? Okay, it did. So I was trying to get your attention for that.
Okay.
If we could extend, but I don't know if you saw me. Secondly, the responses, and thank you each of you for your responses to the questions, but they were quite lengthy. So we have 15 minutes, and I think there was almost 7 minutes in the response. So let's balance that. Yes, we have a lot of questions. We would like great answers, but at the same time, almost 7 minutes to answer. So in this, my comments are prompted by Hakeem wanting to get answers. And so if we could rethink that next time, let's balance time. Let's have an option to extend if everyone will agree for another 10 minutes, and then kind of move from there. So thank you.
Thank you. And is there anything else for the meeting?
Just one thing I would like to, it was nice to hear, but I was just curious which link he used. If he had trouble getting put into a room, I'm just wondering if he was a panelist link or not, because that something we do need to follow up on is him not being able to get in. So that's all.
I can answer that one for you, Nancy, real quick. In order to join a breakout room, Hakeem is joined as a panelist, but in order to join a breakout room, you do have to be on the app. So joining from the browser limits your access within Zoom. So that's the only way that we can have people assigned to breakout rooms, is if they join from the app.
Zoom, you come out Zoom. Okay, that we'll follow up with that in our debrief meeting. All right, thank you for that short. Go ahead, Sol.
And I just have one quick announcement for the CSC. It's just a reminder that if you have hours to report for the month of January, to please use the link that I shared in an email to the stipend tracker, and hours are due January 31st by close of business at 5 p.m.
So we're gonna one last. Oh, public, yes, public comment. And there's no public comment. Yeah, sorry, Victor, go ahead.
Yeah. it appears to me that there's a lot of questions about the procedures associated with 1118. And if I can take this back to my management, the execs, if we want to have an informal meeting to discuss those questions so you can get them answered before we engage on other topics of 1118, that might be something that might be helpful to you guys.
Back to the debrief. And if there's no other questions, we are going to close the meeting. Thank you very much at 7:34.